Hello and a warm welcome to the first ever English video on our channel, which is also going to be the first strategy guide we're going to produce for the Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. So what can you expect from this video? We're going to invite a guest to present a build order in this video, and we're going to have a look at 2 replays of this build order, and afterwards we're going to have a detailed rundown of the strategy so everybody can reproduce it. We like to invite guests for these types of videos because we think that our performance as players does not really qualify us to present these strategies.
Exactly, and our guest is also the main reason why we decided to do this video in English. I mean, it's kind of an experiment. Usually we are uploading German content, but as you can imagine, the number of German well-experienced players is kind of limited, and inviting English people over just gives us more options for future videos. For our German viewers, we will try to add at least some German subtitles to this video, and feel free to let us know if you like our switch to English and if we should do that for future special videos on this channel. Apart from that, let us dive right into it.
And now it's time to introduce our guest today. He's like one of the new stars in the English YouTube scene. He just created a channel recently, but he's incredibly successful already. And we are very happy to say hello to Aussie Drongo today.
G'day fellas, how you doing?
So yeah, really happy that
Exactly.
you're joining us today. You are also uploading a lot of quality content, and that's one of the things I reckon that's really propelling your channel forwards. And I mean, we are looking for quality content here as well in terms of strategy videos, so that works really well together. Really happy to have you here. If you don't know him yet, check out his channel. And so what are we talking about today?
Which is incredibly unlikely, but hey.
Yeah, well, it is unlikely, but what are we talking about today? What's the strategy that you're presenting with us today?
So the strategy that I'm presenting you today, it's a strategy that's been in the works for quite a while. I have always been very fond of the Swedish card Blueberries, but I made friends with Dairuga, who's a professional Age of Empires player from France, and he was always of the opinion that this card was just absolute trash. And so I've been working hard to try and convince him that this card does actually have potential. So the strategy that I've found that I do genuinely believe has significant potential is the Blueberry Fast Industrial.
Okay, that's one thing to say. Blueberry Fast Industrial. Just want to mention that I'm always taking the blueberries as well and also kind of like them. So really happy that you're presenting the strategy and show us that it all makes sense. So do we have to remember about this strategy? What's the game plan? What are the game options that we have that we shouldn't do or should do?
So ideally with this strategy, you're going to want to be using it against civilizations that aren't going to be aggressive in the early game. So if you're up against Spain, who's going to be doing a fast fortress and hitting you at about 8 or 9 minutes, it's probably not a good idea against them. But against a more passive civilization like the Dutch or the Portuguese, who are going to be looking to fast fortress themselves and get themselves a little bit of an economy going, it's a perfect strategy against them. It's also a strategy that can be used in team games, as long as you're able to scout your opponent.
All right.
All right, okay. I mean, it's your strategy, so you call the shots here. Should we start the recording?
Okay.
Yeah, I reckon we do it. So we will go into the whole strategy in more detail afterwards. But first of all, we are looking at the first replay here, which is played against, let's have a look, against Dutch, all right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably like a short explanation of what we're going to do here. We're going to watch 2 replays together with Drongo, and he's going to explain a lot about the strategy while doing so. And after we're done with that, we're going to have like a little rundown of the strategy, like a little recap, where we're going to summarize everything we just learned so far. And yeah, this like summary of the strategy will also be available on our Discord, just to make sure that everybody can reproduce it.
Exactly. So you're sending obviously the growth rickshaw out, which is not available on every map, which is very specific for this map, but doesn't make much of a difference. And you're setting up the first torp here.
Yeah, so with the first torp, I'm making sure that I've got it very close to my coin mine, and I'm also making sure that it's got hunt available for it immediately. My main focus is that my torp's going to be able to collect from the berry bushes as well as from the hunt that's on the ground.
Yeah, so
That's
we
really
see
gonna
that
speed up
here.
my early game.
Yeah, and you're setting up the second one as well.
Yeah,
And you're also still collecting wood, I see.
Yeah, so normally I'd be stopping at 2 torps and moving everybody over to food. But because I've scouted quite a large wood treasure in the south of the map,
Yep.
it means that I am going to be putting down a third torp, and this is going to speed me up even further. It's going to mean that I delay my age up very slightly, but it's going to mean that as soon as my Blueberries card hits, I'm going to be able to have a Blueberry torp immediately.
So that's obviously some really good micro here, seeing the treasure. You know that this gives you 80 wood, so you only need to gather another 55 wood or something, and that's why you stopped chopping wood as well, and now switched everyone over to food.
Yeah.
Shall we have a short look at the deck right now?
Yeah, we do that now. So we already see that the Blueberry card is in transition now. We do see that it's definitely Fast Fortress because you don't have that many cards in Second Age.
Yeah, the idea here is that we want to convince the enemy that we're not going to be doing a fast industrial. We've got all the cards that we need in industrial, and ideally we'd love to include some more, but we don't want them to know what we're doing.
Right.
And that's why I've included an extra amount of cards in the Third Age, which I never plan on sending.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
so it's just a ruse. I see.
So you can always use them, right? So if you're out of cards in Industrial Age, if the game continues longer, then you can always send those as well. But it doesn't hurt, and you still have like some fair amount of cards in the Industrial Age.
Yeah.
And shipments
One
getting
of the
rarer.
things to note is that my Blueberries card has only just arrived, and I've just completed the torp. So that torp was sitting there unbuilt for quite some time. I left it at about 95% complete, and then as soon as my card arrives, I finish it and complete it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good thing to do that I also sometimes try to do. You're also deleting the water buffaloes right next to the top, so they get auto
gathered
from the torps, pretty much. Doing some herding
yeah,
here.
exactly.
And because I've got 3 torps, it means that I can gather them significantly faster than if I just had 2 or 1 torp.
So what do you
fair
think
point.
of the of your opponent's deck, if I can open it up?
You'll need to go and view him in the replay and then open it up through the home city, I think.
Oh, good to know. Okay, you can't. You need to switch
Love
to
it.
the view.
Yeah, change character.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, that makes
Player,
sense.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't really know what's happening to him. Obviously, we shouldn't know, because Drongo didn't know. But what do you think of his deck?
Yeah, so when I saw his deck, I thought it was a very versatile deck. He's got Town Militia in the first age, so if I'm looking to rush him, it means there's going to be potential there for him to stop that. He's also got all the cards that I'd expect to see in a Dutch deck. So overall, this is a very solid deck. It's a deck that I'd use myself. The only thing that I'd probably be changing out is the 8 Halberdiers instead of and be putting in 7 Rooters. Other than that, it's a really, really good deck.
Yeah, well, it's also giving a lot of potential for Fast Fortress, right? Which is something that Dutch likes to go semi-FF and then send out goon skirms, or actually Rooter skirms.
Yeah, and the 2 heavy cannons in there also mean that he might be looking to go industrial quite quickly.
Right,
So
and the 1600 wood, right? It's also a card that you don't see that often.
Yeah, normally I'd be taking Tulip Speculation over the 1600 wood.
Yeah.
At that stage of the game, 1600 wood, it's useful, but it's not as useful as the Tulip Speculation.
Yeah, right, so you should...
I'd agree.
You don't need more town centers with Dutch because you only have 50 villages. You don't need any more... Well, you can always build infrastructure like, I don't know, racks and all that, but... Yeah, okay. So going back to the game, just wanted to have some short thoughts on that. But you thought, like, well, this does look like a fortress or industrial game, so it's definitely safe to play the industrial strategy that you had in mind as well, right?
Exactly. I saw the deck and I said, perfect. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing.
All right. So
Okay,
yeah.
So now you're gathering all the food you need for the age up, which you just queued, and now you're putting everybody on wood, I guess?
Yeah, that's right. So I transition everybody over to wood, with the exception of just 1 or 2 settlers, which are going to be herding my hunts to coin mines. Now, the key here is that I want to make sure every single coin mine that I have torps on has a hunt. That's really key, because the torps gather at the equivalent of half a villager per second when they've got a hunt nearby. So by having the torps with hunts accessible, it means that I'm able to go and boost my economy even faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of these little things that you can do that will definitely increase your performance with this strategy, I guess. So, I mean, that is probably something that might be a bit difficult to do for less experienced players, but it's probably something you should, exercise doing. since it will definitely enhance the economic capability of the of the torps. I'm sorry.
So you see that here now that animal here died and now it's being collected. You're going up with a naturalist. What's your reasoning behind that?
So the naturalist is an incredibly strong politician to age up with. Not only does it provide you the 2 settlers, but it provides the 2 fattened cows or semi-fattened cows. And those semi-fattened cows are going to provide us the food to get to the industrial age in a very, very short period. So instead of going for the philosopher prince, which would give you 500 food, we can just simply go for the naturalist, which also gives us 500 food and 2 settlers. It's just a little bit of a slower payoff.
Right. So now you're sending wood over, 700 wood from the home city as second shipment, so I reckon just for more torps, for faster torp building?
Yeah, that's right. So I've moved out a whole bunch of settlers onto 5 mines. So I've got forward settlers at the bottom of the map, at the top of the map, and 1 in the middle of the map.
Yep.
And I'm making sure that when I am tasking my settlers to build the torps, that I leave them idle and I don't shift click them. And the reason why is, especially when you're herding, if you are shift clicking, you're relying on the herd to remain in the same position that it is when you do that shift click. If the herd moves, since you've done that shift click, you may end up sending it the other way, which will take you 2 or 3 times as long to get it in the position that you want.
Absolutely.
So I avoid shift clicking my herds especially.
Yeah, you always have like that moment where you shift click your settlers and then you move your camera to do something else somewhere, and then you come back and see, oh, the herd has moved on its own, and actually your shift click led to being like herding the herd further away than from the point you want to have it.
And that's exactly what I avoid. It was something that I got into the habit of doing, but since the definitive edition, the AI has been changed with the herds, and they move a lot faster and a lot further than what they used to in the original game, and so it's just a habit that I've had to get rid of.
Yeah, I have also the feeling that like herding was a little bit easier in the regular game, and now it's become a little bit harder to do. But
yeah, that's definitely the case.
Well, we screwed up anyways.
Sorry, quick question. You're now sending Engelsberg Ironworks, and you continue to chop a lot of wood, so you continue your torp boom for the moment, and you try to max out the torps actually, or where do you stop?
Yeah, so we're ideally aiming for 7 minutes. We want to put our last torp down at 7 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
It can sometimes be difficult to do. You're only ever able to do it in a very greedy game. So I'm making no barracks, I'm making no stables. I'm relying on my opponent to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, to putting up his banks and all that, because he's Dutch. That's pretty no. You also see that there are 4 banks down already, which is quite a thing to do. And I reckon he's also like pretty much ready to age up by now if he doesn't go for more banks in second age, which doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah. I think he ages up at quite a competitive time as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, he goes very heavily on the economy.
So now with the Engelsberg Ironworks, we see that the coin gathering rate of the mines has been increased by 125%. It was a lot higher in the beginning. How did the change or the nerf of the Engelsberg Ironwork card change this strategy? Did it change it at all, or you're aging up as well? Yeah.
Yeah. So we're taking the exiled prince to age up. So.
Yep.
Initially, it was 200% that Ironworks provided, and it meant you had so much coin that you really didn't know what to do with it. So a lot of strategies you would see would end up being more orientated around mercenaries. But as we've continued to see the nerf of Ironworks, and there's been less and less gold income, we're seeing less and less mercenaries in the meta.
Wow, but we're seeing now age up to fortress, and this is very, very amazing. Like your food rate and your coin rates, pretty much having you set up, getting you set up to H2 industrial very fast after the fortress.
Yeah,
you're just building one villager, right?
Yeah, the goal is to build one villager and then be able to have enough resources to age up.
So you collected the semi-fattened cows now as well. I reckon for that you didn't delete them right away to get a little bit more food from that. Now you're switching them over to berries or coin?
Yeah,
coin.
That's right. So I've made a little bit of a mistake here just with my starting mine. I should ideally be leaving just a small gap so that my settlers can gather coin from it.
Yeah, right. Which now they are running around and try to find a free spot on the mine. You're
Yeah.
sending 1,000 wood. As
Yeah,
another
so
count.
this 1,000 wood is going to enable us to build all the infrastructure that we need. Because the torps gather so much coin and so much food, we only really need to worry about wood. Everything else is taken care of. And with the economy that we're going to be having, we're unable to maintain unit production unless we ship that 1,000 wood to build the infrastructure that we need.
Right, which is happening right away
Fair
now.
point.
3 barracks going up.
Yeah,
You're
so
building them pretty defensively.
I'm making sure that I keep them away from my opponent. It's really important that these barracks get up. Once they get up, I'm okay. But until they get up, it can be a little bit concerning. Now, because I'm not under pressure, I am researching veterancy immediately. If I was under pressure or experiencing raids around the map, I'd be training Carolians instead.
So going up with the
Fair point.
engineer to
Yeah, so the
industrial.
engineer is going to provide us
cannons?
2 falconets.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Fair point. Okay, so you try to make sure that if your enemy attacks you or your opponent attacks you, the first thing he's going to see is not your barracks, because you want to make sure that these will survive, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay. Also, you build an arsenal in the market right
Yeah.
now.
So the arsenal and the market are very key. So the military drummer is the upgrade that we're going to be getting for our Carolians. It's going to enable them to charge faster and just be more versatile on the field. The other important upgrade that we're going to be getting from the arsenal is Gunner's Quadrant, which increases the line of sight of our artillery by 6.
Yeah. Which is very,
To
very
make sure that you can simply be sniped by enemy culverines.
Exactly.
So here are the
I
new
see.
2 falconets.
So
So the Carolians, just as a heads up, also got a switch, or yeah, it's kind of a nerf because they lost their ability to switch to melee mode and get that 1 speed up, and instead they now have that charge attack, which I can't show you right here because it's a replay, but that has been changed up recently as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting mechanic. I wasn't a fan of it at first, but I'm slowly coming around to the idea.
So here we get the Dutch now
The
coming into
push-up
your
here.
base, sending
Yeah, because I
Fusiliers.
aged up at about 10 minutes and 3 seconds. I hit industrial, and I think it's very natural when you see your opponent age up. You just want to attack them immediately because you're like, oh well, what do I do here?
Yeah. So he will actually send
good point.
mercenaries as well, because he has the Fusiliers, and I think you can send them, build them from the saloon on its own.
Sorry, quick question. What was the first shipment you sent after you aged up?
So the first shipment I sent was Sphere Lifeguard, which gives my Carolians 30% range resist instead of 30% melee resist. It also increases their health pool, I think, by 25%. It's an incredibly strong card, especially in Fortress Age fights, where your opponent typically is going to be going Dragoon and Skirmisher. It just gives an absolute huge amount of extra health on top of it.
So industrial fights, right? Because it's only available in industrial.
Fortress, because
Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll
but-
be fighting against a Fortress opponent though, and he'll be trying his
Oh, yeah.
best to defend it.
Yeah,
in
right.
Fortress.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right.
So at this point, I'm bringing 3 villages forward to build an outpost, and I'm making sure that I ship my heavy cannons so that they arrive just as the outpost is going to finish. And the idea here is that I want to sit with my Carolians and my falconets and protect this outpost at all costs.
So the
Because
really,
as soon as it's built, it's going to pop 2 heavy cannons out.
yeah, that's a really reasonable thing to do. You're now getting Cav as well, coming up. More mercenaries here, but Carolians are pretty much able to deal with that.
Well, Yeah, he called in the Stradiots from the church, the unique church card.
Yeah,
But
right.
the Carolians are they've got bonuses against heavy cavalry.
So here we go now,
So-
heavy cannons.
So, the heavy cannons come in at 12 minutes and 15 seconds. And from here, it's
which is insane, by the way.
Yeah. You know what's
a little
even
bit
more...
of a difficult spot.
So what I find really amazing is that you're still on 25 villagers with all that. So it's like literally all torps.
Yeah, it's the torp economy. It's insane. So I've got the equivalent of 47.2 villages in torps.
Yeah.
Oh, you calculated that actually.
Yeah. So right now it looks it's about 80 villages.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, a quick question. I mean, I guess that like the first couple torps around your base are probably going to run out of coins soon.
Yeah, they did already.
Oh, they already did, by the way. Would you ever like consider to demolish them and like rebuild them anywhere else where there maybe is like a fresh coin mine, or would you say that that is actually not well?
Yeah, so in the top of the map, the very, very top of the map, I've got a settler who is waiting to build those torps that you talk about. So yeah, that settler is patiently waiting until the berry bushes run out.
There's also an interesting card having falconets and culverines.
Yeah, so often when people see the heavy cannons, their first thought is I'll make culverins, and the 2 culverin and 2 falconet card counters that. So it's a proactive solution to that problem.
Yeah, it's really, really amazing like how fast you've been aging up and everything. But it also depends on the enemy not pushing you too hard, right?
Yeah, one of the key things is that it's a very greedy build. I don't think there's a more greedy build with Sweden that you can do than this. And in the event that you do face pressure from the enemy, it's important that you're flexible with the build order. I've played games with this build order where I've had to stay in the 2nd age, and games where I've had to stay in the 3rd age. But typically, just because I'm changing my plan doesn't mean that I'm not going to be able to get to industrial very quickly, get those heavy cannons out on the field, and still be able to finish the game in the same way that I wanted at the start of the game.
Right. Well, you're pretty much prepared for Fortress and Colonial, or what's it called in English? Merchant Age?
Merchant Age,
Yeah,
right.
Commerce Age.
Commerce Age,
right?
Yeah. That's it.
So you're pretty
Still
much...
takes it some like time to get used to that, actually.
yeah, it's still colonial for me. So you're well prepared to fight those fights as well, which we see in the deck here. So what is your overall thoughts with this game? Are you fully satisfied? What are the things that you could have improved? Or are there things?
With this build order, I've spent a number of games optimizing it, so it's now in its final form. So I've gone through a number of different card orders, and the card order that I've got at the moment and the build order, I'm satisfied. It's perfect. So this game was a really good demonstration of the strength of this build order, because my opponent allowed me to do what I needed to do or what I wanted to do, and they didn't really interrupt me. So in this game, there was not a lot that I could have improved on, mainly just in the beginning, not overgathering wood. I think I overgathered about 30 wood.
Yeah, with the treasure.
My age up time. Yeah. So that affected my age up time a little bit, but it wasn't a huge mistake. Other than that, though, I'm satisfied it was played well.
Yeah, it was definitely played well. Also, like, the wood isn't lost, right? It's only a minute later that you're building more torps, so it's like overgathering is always like, it's fine if you use the resources in a short amount of time after that, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the wood is going to good use.
Yeah.
It just means the consequence of picking up that extra wood means that you're not gathering food, and because you're not gathering food, you age up slightly slower. Because you age up slightly slower, your 700 wood's delayed, so you get your torps up slightly slower. So it does have a flow-on effect, but it doesn't go to waste.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're now also building a 2nd town center just to make sure that you maintain your economy. But the thing is, with a new nerf of the Engelsberg Ironworks, it's actually leading to mines persisting a little bit longer, right? Because the torps gather less resources from it, or slower. So
so 4 torps will take 12 and a half minutes to empty a coin mine.
Yeah. Which
is also the exact same amount of time it takes for them to finish consuming their berry bush.
Oh, that's really good.
It's very convenient. Yeah, it's very convenient.
Because I know when like with the first gathering rates coming from that card before the patch, it was actually the case that usually there was still blueberries but no coins or no mines around.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to wait to have the blueberries being gathered overall.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but we have seen how the strategy works under ideal circumstances. So if your opponent is very passive, allows you to actually boom up and go to industrial age very fast. If I understood it correctly, you also brought a second replay in which you're going to demonstrate how you're going to play the strategy if your opponent is not as passive as you would like him to be.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got a second game where I still do undertake the same game plan where I go for the fast industrial. It is delayed as a consequence of the aggression that I'm experiencing from the enemy, but it's aggression that I'm able to deal with and still able to close out the game in quite a decisive manner.
Okay, fair point. Then we have a short cut here, and we see you back in the next replay.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Alright, and here we are in the second game. So Aussie Drongo obviously also playing Swedish. We are playing against... Oh, more Dutch. That's interesting. But you said this time... This time it's a little bit more aggressive, right?
Yeah, so this Dutch player opts for a more aggressive opening than the previous Dutch player. And so it means that with the strategy that I've got to adapt, I can't just play in my own little, player versus environment. I have to play against a player.
Yeah, makes sense. So as always, first torp going up, you are herding the herd towards the mine and the torp, chopping more wood.
And then I'm chopping more wood. I'm on the hunt for a wood treasure. It's really important that I try and find a wood treasure in the first stage. I want to find a big wood treasure, 80 wood, 90 wood, or 100 wood. That's what I'm looking for, because that'll enable me to get another torp.
Yeah.
So, but you're definitely, set on building 3 torps in the first stage, right?
Yeah, my plan is to always build a third torp in the first stage. That doesn't mean that... So in this instance, I've spotted that wood at the top, but I don't have my crack shot up yet.
Yeah.
So it's a
bummer I can't show that. Like, don't see the abilities of the units. But yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we get some pretty good observer UI coming in soon. I know that there's a couple people working on it.
Yeah, really hope.
Yeah, I guess so. Is the ESOC? I always call them ESOC, but is the ESOC community already working on something? Do you know something?
I believe, is it, I don't know how to say his name, Azamk? Azmac?
Azamp,
yeah.
I think I saw a post from him saying that he's got something in the works at the moment. So.
Oh, that's very cool, yeah.
That's exciting.
They also did a bunch of mods already and have that, for example, that idle villager icon highlighting in red, I think, is a mod that they've been doing because they found that the new symbol for idle villagers in the corner is a little bit too not prominent
very
enough.
Inoffensive, yeah.
So okay, so you're sending blueberries, and you can also check out the opponent's deck right now. So we can do that for a second. So he's also having a water deck here.
Yeah, so he's got a water deck here. It looks a lot more defensive than the first game that we played. He's got 3 outposts in there. He's also got a fort. So my suspicion is, combined with schooners, he's going to be opting to do some form of water boom. When I spot his deck, that's what I'm thinking. He's probably going to look to do a 4-bank FF and then a water boom, and then he'll ship a fort, something like that.
Yeah. Well, schooners is always a good option for Dutch because they only have 50 villagers anyways, and their villagers cost coin. So it's quite an option to go to water. And I know in the regular game that the Dutch eco in late game wasn't strong enough when you don't have any water eco. So with only banks, you were not able to maintain unit production for 150 units. So for treaty games and stuff like this, they were quite weak.
Yeah, that was always one of the issues that they had. And I think one of the ways that they've solved that in the Definitive Edition is through the South African Revolution.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, how many banks can you get legally with that revolution for, right?
So with that revolution, you can still get as many banks.
Not banks, factories.
Factories. Yeah, you can get 3 factories.
3,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Which does help. So now you're going for the 90 wood up here. You have to collect another 45 wood for torp.
It'll only have to be another.
Going to do it?
25. So because I'm so late in my age up and so close to aging up, it's a decision I made not to go for the torp immediately.
Right.
Okay. So you're in 2 torps right now, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 torps.
So far you're not really benefiting from the Blueberries card that you sent in the first age, which is not too bad because, I mean, aging up will start now and then building up more torps will come. You also found a second wood treasure here, which is quite neat, if you can get that.
Yeah, it's got a fair few wood treasures.
But here we have some explorer aggression here.
Explorer fighting, yeah.
So he's going for
Okay,
another
so...
treasure.
Yeah. So he's
oh
actually
yeah, that's another wood treasure.
Another wood treasure, yeah. So there's a lot of good treasures on this map.
Yeah. So sending the settler out for herding and I reckon occupying that mine with torps.
Yeah, that's right. So I've also sent one down south as well. He does scout what I'm doing, so he knows what I'm up to. Another wood treasure.
A lot of wood treasures on this map. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But to be fair, I'd say it's actually in your interest that he spots where you're building your torps, right? Because if he tries to actually, what's the word? To demolish your torps, then he won't like straight run into your base with his first units, right?
Exactly. So I've got a coin mine that's between his base and my base, and so I'm going to make sure that I put torps on that very quickly, because the first thing he's going to do is just go and burn those down. And for me, that's not a hassle at all. It means that I'm going to be delayed in reaching my ultimate goal, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to not achieve that ultimate goal.
Yeah. So down here,
compared to the time that like the torps buy you, they're quite cheap. So
yeah.
So he was also aging up a little bit earlier than you.
He did a very fast age up. I think he aged up at about 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
That's fast, especially for Dutch.
Yeah.
So are these games recorded with the latest patch, or is it a little bit older footage?
These games were played today.
Okay, so
okay.
So that means they start with the new, like the Dutch crates have been changed in the latest patch. So the patch from the 5th of November, I think.
Yeah, so previously the Dutch started with, I think it was 500 coin and 100 wood. And it's been changed to 400 coin, 200 wood, and 100 food. So they've got a nice little buff in the most recent patch.
Yeah, so they can age up a little bit faster. You have to collect a little bit of coin. You can't just straight on just collect food, but especially when you get a coin treasure or something, then it's a little bit faster age up time because of the 100 food that you already get, right?
Yeah. So one of the key things I'm doing here is making sure that I kill this envoy. This envoy can be a big pest, especially when he's scouting out around the 7th or 8th minute mark, and he'll know exactly what you're up to. So it's important that I snare him and make sure I kill him.
Yeah. So 700 wood is already out now. Engelsberg Iron works.
Yeah, same build order basically. So, but I mean, your opponent has already spotted or scouted that you, you're going like very eco heavy here. Like a lot of torps out on the map already. So you can probably expect some aggression towards your torps, right?
Yeah, my suspicion was that he'd probably, even though he'd scouted what I was doing, normally a Dutch player is very comfortable in a boom off. So if they're up against a Brit, they'll say, all right, you stick in your base, I'll stick in mine, and I'll meet you at 10 minutes. That's normally what happens with Dutch players. And so I wasn't expecting to receive any aggression from him. But down south...
here we go, pikes.
The pikemen began, And I ran through a couple different theories about how I should be managing this, about whether I should be sending colonial militia down here to ward them off. But I determined that the best course of action was just simply going to be replacing the torps on other coin mines.
Yeah. So you do have... Well, you don't really have that many, right? You have that one which you're currently obstructing to. Those ones are already pretty much torped.
We're almost fully torped at this point.
Yeah, and it doesn't have
a second batch of pikes on the field.
Yeah, and there are not so many mines on this map, right? So this one is too far to the opponent's base.
Well, it seems that way, but I've got a villager heading over there, and I've got some other ideas for it.
All right, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. There's also a coin mine to the north, which I haven't scouted yet, and
all right.
it's right on the edge of my line of sight.
That's always the worst
Yeah,
thing.
that's pretty annoying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so age up now to the third age with the XL prints again. So the fast age. And is your game plan still the same? So do you want to actually age up to the industrial age immediately, or are you planning on building some structures and some units?
I'm still intent on hitting the industrial age as quickly as I can, and
Okay.
my rationale is that he's only killed, I think at this point, 3 torps,
Yeah,
and
two
I'm
down
shipping
here.
out. So if I need to replace those torps, I can very easily do so, and as soon as I'm up, I'm going to be on wood completely. So replacing the torps isn't going to be much of a big deal.
I see.
Knowing there's a coin mine
mean-
up here is so frustrating.
Yeah, it really is, because I could just be building torps on it. Right
Yeah.
now.
You do have enough
Yeah.
enough wood for that, and this one, especially because the explorer spotted you, isn't that good of a position because it's very near to his barracks, and you can just walk over there and destroy them all together.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things I did. As soon as I realized the explorer was on that coin mine, I made sure to get out of there quick smart, because I said, well, there's going to be 5 more pikes on the way to destroy this, and they're going to grab my settler, and it's important that I keep my settler alive because he can or she can continue building as many torps as I like.
But still, even with 7 torps down, now industrial age up is ready to go. Now you have hussars in the base as well, though.
Yeah, so my industrial age is delayed by about 30 seconds in total.
Yep.
And the hussars create quite a bit of an issue because they prevent me from getting my barracks up.
Yeah,
and
that's actually quite a problem.
Yeah, and so
Oh.
it was difficult dealing with them because they started taking out settlers as well, and you can see I'm down to 140 population space.
Yep.
So that's only that's 11 blueberry torps that are up right now on the field. So he's essentially taken me from 18 to 11 torps. So
That's
a tough spot.
That's really lucky that
I
you
think
get
he didn't
that.
spot. Yeah, he didn't spot the barracks, I think.
The one in the back.
Yeah,
I think.
one of the things I'm gonna aim to be doing when I'm against enemy aggression like this is moving all of my settlers away to the back of the base, like how I've done here.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to have those settlers back there.
Well, you also send
Okay.
send out the militia to ward off the hussars, but you're down on population space, right? Like you lost quite an amount of torps, and now you spotted the coin mine though with that Rex over here.
Yeah, with the racks, yeah. So my thinking behind that barracks was that I can't get a barracks up in my base, so I might as well put one up here so I can begin researching with it.
I reckon
Yeah,
the
fair
really
point. So you're doing the veterancy upgrade now, and also building like a lot of Carolines right now.
So the really good
Yeah.
thing about like sending out villagers to build torps is also, even if you get raided in your own base, you can just construct the barracks over here, for example, and he can't be everywhere, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So one of the interesting things about blueberries is that it really increases the strength of your torps so significantly that you don't actually need to have a hunt nearby. So ideally, you'd want to hunt on every single coin mine, but in a game like this, which is scrappy, and I've got pikemen chasing me around the whole map, it means that I'm not always going to have deer that I can have my torps gathering from. So when I go and place my torp over on the mine that's close to the enemy's base, I can just leave it there, and I know that it's going to be gathering up 40 food per minute from the blueberry bush.
Yeah.
So it's a safeguard.
So now we do have the
Yep.
heavy cannons popping out at home. You haven't built an outpost this time because you had some problems with like getting your barracks out and don't have that much wood.
Quick
lying
question,
around.
by the way. I'm not quite sure if I overlooked it, but did you skip Svea Lifeguard this time and go straight for the cannons?
I did,
Yep.
yeah. So I decided to do that just because with the skirmisher mass that was beginning to build, I was fearful that I wasn't going to be able to deal with it unless I had those heavy cannons out nice and early.
All right, I see.
Trying to get
You're
some-
sending them up to the north of the map, right?
That's right, yeah.
They're just
So
arriving
they're
here.
together with the 2 falconets.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
each are-
That's definitely going to be a nasty surprise for the Dutch player.
Indeed it is.
In your face.
Wow. Heavy cannons are just bombing through
Yeah,
units. It's crazy.
They're just the worst. That was actually my favorite strategy when I started playing Age of Empires 3. Like, play Ottomans and go for factories and only build the heavy bombards.
Heavy bombards are really quite something else, aren't they? They've just got such a huge AoE on them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
they
not
shoot
really...
incredibly painfully slowly, though.
Yeah, for competitive playing, it isn't that much of an option to, like... Well, there's some fast industrial people with Ottoman, but... It's hard to pull off, I think, but in a fun game against AI, it's nothing like having 5 bombers just blasting units away.
Yeah.
It's quite entertaining.
Anyway, back to the game. So you're desperately trying to rebuild your torps here, but the Dutch player is actually doing quite a good job of denying you the torps. I mean, I guess that's his only chance of survival. If he doesn't do so, then you will get like in a crazy economy.
Yeah, so I'm definitely in damage control mode at the moment. I'm sending out settlers to all corners of the maps to try and get my torp population back up.
Yep.
At the same time, I'm putting pressure on the enemy at home and saying, well, you're going to come and have to deal with me at home and let my torps build up. But because I'm in the 4th age, it means that I can leverage my powerful shipments like the factory. And if the game goes on longer than what it should, I'm going to be at a significant advantage.
Yeah, this is quite an amount of cavalry here. Now you're protecting your cannons, obviously, with the Caroleans, which does work out.
Yeah.
For the moment, at least. There goes the first heavy cannon.
The heavy cannons have got a huge amount of HP on them.
Yep.
So compared to the 200 of a falconet, they've got 475.
Yeah, and against
a lot of people underestimate.
Yeah, and especially like usually
ridiculous range resist.
Yeah, right. Like with goon units, you can always try to snapshot cannons out as well, but with a 75 range resist on cannons, that's quite heavy to pull off.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So first factory is coming in now. You also send Swearlife. God.
At this point, I'm still somewhat in damage control. I realize that I'm not going to be able to kill the opponent with my initial push. I was determining as to whether I should be sending the 2 falconets and the 2 culverins, and I decided that it wasn't going to be enough to end the game. So I realized the game was going to have to continue on for longer than I would have hoped, and so that's when I started sending factories.
Yeah.
Okay, but Swearlife Guard was still your second card, and now your third card in the Industrial Age is a factory, and your 4th is another factory, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, yeah.
So we also see Dutch also like preparing for a little bit late game here, setting up a second town center down here, like down in the bottom of the map.
Yeah, trying to like finally deny this coin mine there.
Yep.
Yeah, he's doing his best to try and stop that, but
here we have the Carolean charge. I think you just activated the charge. Yeah, now
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense against skirmishes.
Unfortunately, it is a global ability, so even though my Caroleans over to the left of the screen were fighting against the rooters, and I want them fighting in ranged, when I select that small group to the south and get them to attack the skirmishers, it also puts the group to the left into melee against the routers. So it is a global ability.
Oh wow, so you can't...
That's a bit annoying.
Yeah, you can't activate it on the single units themselves, right?
Yeah, that's right. You can still turn them into melee mode, but they don't get that speed boost.
Right.
So you really have to be quite sure if you're going to use it and commit, either to retreat or to an attack.
It's actually like I didn't even think about it might being a global ability because, like, for example, the treasure the explorers from the Asian dynasties, they also have their abilities, but they are activated differently. So you can activate the stun ability on the treasure guardians for each of the explorers. So I didn't even assume that the charge might be global. I thought it's like every unit or like every control group that you activated on.
Well, I mean, it was clear that it has a global cooldown, but that it actually like activates on all units at the same time. That's a bit surprising.
Well, was it clear with the global cooldown? Yeah. Wasn't clear for me.
Yeah, was it? Because you actually read that in the patch notes when we did the video on the latest patch, my friend.
Oh. I didn't really realize that. That's actually kind of eye-opener right now. But wait, yeah, so you now have both factories set up, so that's already pretty good. Your opponent is still in the 3rd age, so he will have a weaker economy than you.
Even though you're on 22 settlers.
I am on 22 settlers, but I've got 20 torps, and they're all gathering from
Yep.
Blueberries. So it's really about the equivalent of 70 settlers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
What are you going to do with your factories? Are you going to gather coin, or
Oh.
are you going for the heavy cannons, or what's the plan?
So my plan is, in the interim, to gather food with them so that I can support building up a small Carolian mass, and then researching the heavy cannon upgrade, and then switching over to heavy cannons once that's finished.
this
I see.
fort
Okay.
won't stay around too long. As soon as you spot it with the,
Unfortunately not.
that would have been a pain in the ass though.
Yeah, most definitely. But that didn't go as planned for the Dutch player.
Yeah.
So with Carolians, even though I'm somewhat suiciding them here, they trade incredibly effectively. And that's why I'm more than happy to take that fight, just because of how strong they are. Even though I know I'm going to lose those initial Carolians, they're going to
Even
trade
close
very well.
combat.
Yeah.
I mean,
So-
that is actually something I was actually interested in. So, like, if you have like a sufficiently huge cavalry mass, if you can actually cost efficiently charge Carolians, or if you can't.
I think in smaller numbers, it's definitely possible. So around maybe the 15 Hussar mark, it would definitely be possible if you're up against, say, 30 to 40 Carolians. But once it starts to get into the larger numbers, so around like the 40 or 50 Hussar number, I don't think so, just because of the way that the Carolians micro and the mass that they're going to have. They're going to have so many, and when they attack move, they're going to be able to wipe out, you know, the whole first line, and then the whole second line, and then the whole third line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the ranged multiplier on cavalry, and especially, that's a really tricky word to say in English, by the way. Cavalry. Come on. Sorry for that.
Tried to say squirrel.
Yeah,
I
right.
think one English native speaker told me if you can pronounce squirrel correctly, then you have understood the language.
Well, squirrel is like, I don't know. Cavalry is maybe not like less used to that word.
No, but cavalry is it's the same problem, I guess.
Yeah, right. So the thing is, like, that multiplier against hand cavalry is kind of really helpful for cav fights, right? Because even when you're in melee, some of your units, the more masses on the field, the more of your units will fire in ranged mode every now and then.
Yeah, especially once the Carolians get their upgrades. So the upgrade that I just shipped, Snaplock, that increases their range by 4.
Yep.
And then in addition to that, there's another upgrade for them in the third age, which increases the bonus damage that they get against hand cavalry.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually kind of funny. They start out as like comparable to musketeers, but they end up being closer to skirmishers actually.
Yeah,
Like with
very
the
fair.
range resist and the higher range and stuff, and the faster firing range rate. That's like kind of reminiscent of skirmishers.
Yeah, in the late game, they are definitely. I think they're the king of the musketeer and the skirmisher wars.
So one thing that you don't even like think about in this game, or at least it looks like that, is going on water and maybe try to contest the water if he's doing water booming. Like at least then putting up a harbor and like.
Yeah, putting up a dock and building some fishing boats just to scout. So you were pretty sure that he wasn't going on water, or?
I was satisfied, even if he was on water, even if he'd done a full water boom, I was going to be able to beat him.
Wow.
Okay.
I was confident that no matter what he did, I would be able to beat it with my build order. It was in the rock paper scissors, it was the dynamite.
That's a very nice comparison.
Absolutely.
Okay, so not quite sure if these two heavy cannons will actually pop. Yeah, okay, he doesn't see
do.
them.
Yeah, I mean he's trying to raid your villages here, but the thing is, most of your eco is not your villages. 25 villages is pretty much nothing. What he needs to do is like run down your torps. The thing is, like those torps, for example, they don't benefit at all. So that would be the point of setting them up again. But now you're also in the base here with the heavy cannons and the falconets and the culverines. So you're destroying his economy now. So I reckon this is pretty much game over now.
He's in a difficult position here. He has to deal with this army that's in his base. And he tries to make as much of an attempt to distract me back at home, but it's very short-lived.
Yeah.
So I make quite a critical error here, and that's leaving my artillery alone. But fortunately, the heavy cannons have got so much damage that they can almost handle themselves.
Yeah. Still
It's kind
survive.
of broken, but yeah, heavy cannons are incredibly powerful even against.
Would you look at that? You're now actually having a frigate
Yeah, I do have that line of sight up there from the
on the
torps,
way.
and I could see that there were still fish in the water, and that he didn't appear to be on water. So I was satisfied that he wasn't on water, or that if he was, it wasn't in a meaningful way.
Yeah. You still decided to
Fair
go
point.
for the frigate just to have a look for that?
Yeah, I decided that it would be useful to just sort of push him in from the border. I was hopeful that I'd be able to take out the houses that are to the north with that, and then just sort of assert dominance and shut that route down. In the end game, people are often looking for a way to get back in the game,
Yeah.
and the water is one of those ways. So by shipping this frigate, it sort of cements my my victory.
Yeah.
But he's like actually very resilient. He doesn't want to resign just yet,
Oh,
and
so there is a dock.
He actually built a dock. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he didn't really
I
eco
think
boom
it
on
was only
water.
quite recently. Yeah, I think it was only quite recently that he actually put up that dock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we could have looked at it with the fog of war, but we want to have, like, no god knowledge here of the game, so...
Just want to see what you saw. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the GG, and now the game is over.
Quite
Yes.
quite entertaining and also very, very impressive build, in my opinion.
It was very difficult to find a build where Blueberries was useful, because when you're comparing 3 villages against Blueberries, the Blueberries take a very long time to pay off.
Hmm.
And so I determined that the faster you could get to maximum torps, then the faster you could pay them off. So at the moment, the torps or the Blueberries, when you've got a greedy build, it takes roughly 8 minutes for them to pay off against or to overtake 3 vills. Whereas if you do a safer build, it's going to take you much longer, upwards of 12 or 13 minutes.
Right. Okay, so I reckon this is now the replay part, so we will dive right into the strategy, yeah,
Recap, summary,
Recap.
whatever you want to call it.
right. So,
Exactly.
See you in a bit.
So we have a little short rundown of the strategy now, in which Ozzy is going to present like the key points of the strategy again, and we're going to listen to that now.
All right, so we'll start with the goals of the strategy. So with the Blueberry Fast Industrial, it's really important we get down our last torp as soon as possible. That way it starts paying off much sooner. So we want to be aiming for our last torp to be put down at 7 minutes on the dot. We want to be hitting Fortress at 8 minutes. We want to be hitting Industrial at 10 minutes. We want to then be attacking our enemy at 12 minutes with 50 Carolians, 2 Falconets, and 2 heavy cannons. So in the first stage, what you're going to be looking at doing is gathering wood for your second torp as soon as possible. You need to get those 2 torps up ASAP. It's really key because it's going to increase the gather rate, or it's going to increase the rate at which you gather food from both the 2 berry bushes as well as the hunt that's on the ground. The first card that you ship is going to be Blueberries. Once you've created 12 settlers, you're going to age up with the Naturalist, which is going to provide you 2 settlers as well as 2 semi-fattened cows. Once you've clicked up and you're in transition, you want to send out 2 forward settlers to herd the hunt to coin mines and build torps around those coin mines. It's important that every torp has got access to hunts on the ground in addition to the coin mines and the Blueberries. In transition, keep everybody else that's not out as a forward settler on wood and build those forward torps on coin mines. It's really, really important. Once you've aged up into the second age, do not eat the cows that came with the Naturalist. You're going to save them until later in the game. Make sure that you keep all your settlers on wood, including the forward settlers, which can be on coin or herding hunts. But if there's a tree nearby, then ideally you'd want them on wood as well. The first card that you ship is going to be 700 wood. When you ship the 700 wood, you're going to send either a third or a third and a fourth settler, depending on how many coin mines that you start with. Ideally, you want to have 4 torps on 5 separate coin mines. So if you've only got 1 coin mine in your base, it means that you need to send out an extra villager to be building torps. When you're herding towards your torps, when the animals are around the torps, it's important that you kill the entire herd, because even though they're going to decay, they're not going to wander away if they're dead. And it's really important that your torps are able to gather food from the carcasses as long as possible. Once you've shipped 700 wood and your next shipment arrives, you're going to be shipping ironworks. Once 20 settlers are created, you're going to have enough food to age up with the exiled prince. As soon as you click up, gather your cows immediately and shift 8 settlers from wood over to coin. Make sure when you do this, you use the coin mine that had the starting torps built on it. By exhausting this mine sooner, it means that you can delete the torps and rebuild them on a new mine. By taking them from the starting mine that you had, it means that the berry bushes on it will already be exhausted. In Age 3, the first card that you're going to ship is 1,000 wood. Once you've created your 21st settler, so building a single settler, you're going to have enough resources to age up with the engineer. Once you've clicked up, keep 6 settlers on coin and the rest on wood. Once your 1,000 wood arrives, with it build 3 barracks, a market and an arsenal. You're then going to begin training Carolians and researching veteran Carolians. Once the arsenal has completed, research military drummer as well as gunner's quadrant. This is going to enable your Carolians to move faster and your artillery to see further. Once you reach the 4th age, your first card that you're shipping is Sve Lifeguard. Continue training Carolians, and when you've got enough resources, research Guard Carolians. Ideally, you should be able to research this when you've got between 15 and 20 Carolians. Begin pushing forward with your 2 Falconets and your Carolians. With your army, bring 3 settlers. You're going to be building a forward outpost as close to the enemy base as possible. When your settlers are about 5 seconds away before they begin the outpost, that's when you'll ship your 2 heavy cannons. You're going to continue rallying your Carolians to the outpost, and you're going to defend the outpost at all costs. You don't want to push in until your heavy cannons arrived. Once the outpost is finished, make sure that you quickly click on the outpost, and you're going to change the shipment point to the outpost. It's imperative that you do this with haste. If you delay this, even by 1 or 2 seconds, your heavy cannons will be shipped to your home city or to your main base, and as a consequence, it's going to delay your push by upwards of a minute or 90 seconds. You're then going to push into the enemy base with 2 Falconets, 2 heavy cannons, and 50 Carolians, and continue rallying Carolians into the enemy's base. From here, you should be able to have a decisive victory.
All right. So that's a lot of information, but I think, especially with the replays that we saw, it also gives a pretty good idea about the whole thing. But there's still some options, right? In the second game, you face some early aggression and all that. So it's like, this is the ideal build order, right?
Yeah, that's right. This is the ideal build order. There are situations where you might be up against a player who does something completely different to what you expected. You could be up against a Portuguese player, and you're thinking, all right, it's a water map. He's Portuguese, he's probably going to water boom. But he forwards his town center on top of you, and he uses the logistician, and he begins training musketeers. It means that you need to adapt. You can't just send 700 wood and then ironworks and then try and hit the industrial age. Instead of sending ironworks as your 3rd card, you can send 600 wood as your 3rd card. And with this wood, you can then build barracks. You can avoid... If you're aware that your opponent is being aggressive towards you, you can stop building your torps and save that wood for barracks. The torps are going to continue to generate resources. You're going to have enough resources to begin building military units to defend you. By shipping the 600 wood, it's going to enable you to fill those torps that were missing. The torps that you had to, that you should have built, but you spent that wood on barracks. That's going to enable you to get up towards that important maximum torp milestone, because at that point in the game, you've already shipped blueberries. There's no going back. You can't take that back and ship 3 settlers. So you still have to try and make these torps pay off as quickly as possible. And if that means delaying your ironworks, then so be it. But it will enable you to be flexible and enable you to deal with that early pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but otherwise than that, if there's no early aggression, this build order is pretty much superior to most fast industrial, well, it always depends on the map, but it's a very good strategy for countering fast industrials or very late game oriented gameplay from your opponent, right?
This is a strategy that is best against a passive fast fortress or a fast industrial. So if you're up against a Chinese player or a Dutch player or a Portuguese or a British player, then it is a strategy that has a huge amount of potential and is designed to hit them before they can begin to capitalize on their economy coming on before their economy comes online.
Right. So maybe one thing that's also very interesting for us is how valid is it for team play? I mean, this, like, the replays obviously well one versus one, but there's obviously also the possibility of playing team games. Is it a good support strategy, or is it too risky for team play? What do you think about that?
I've adopted this into team play in 2 versus 2 and 3v3. There's essentially what happens is there's normally one team is doing a rush and the other team is defending it. Often you'll see teams head towards the fortress age around the 9th minute. I have somewhat adapted this strategy so that I am able to continue hitting the fortress age at the same time, but then instead of shipping the 1,000 wood, shipping 2 falconets. And with all of my settlers on wood, I'm then building barracks by cutting the last 2 or 3 torps out of the build, still aging up on time, and then pushing and being able to help defend my ally with Carolians and falconets. And then from there, once I'm in the fortress age, I'm able to send 1,000 wood if I need to, or continue up until the industrial age.
Right, because, like, the thing is, team games are usually a lot more fast-paced, and it's easier to push on the enemy base when you have 2 armies from one team. And I think it doesn't really help you much to get into industrial with your teammates being defeated already.
Surprisingly, the Carolians, when they've got their guard upgrades and the Sve lifeguard card shipped, they are able to 2v1. I have actually played a number of games where I've been just building Sve lifeguard Carolians and heavy cannons, and I've been able to 2v1 with my opponent just sitting in the base laughing. So it definitely has the potential to do that, but it's best to avoid that outcome if it's possible. So the build order would probably be best optimized for going Blueberries, then 700 wood, then 600 wood in a team game, and trying to stay in the second age for a more extended period, but still aiming to age up to industrial before that 13-14 minute mark. For the Swedish, it's imperative that they hit industrial at an early point in the game, because their economy starts to fall off when their torps fall off. And the way that you can mitigate that is by being in the 4th age and shipping your factories. So you have to leverage the huge economy that you get in that early game, and then use that to power you through to the late game, where you can then access your factories.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much for this very detailed explanation of your line of thinking and the whole strategy. We very much appreciate it.
So maybe one thing that we should talk about is the first card. Usually for most nations, is 3 villages, right? It's the standard card that helps to bolster your economy in the early game, whereas Blueberries now is the first card here, and that's not quite often to see someone not sending 3 villagers. Maybe we should compare the two a little bit.
So with 3 villages, it's a linear increase. Every 30 seconds, your villager is going to be gathering 30 seconds worth of resources. So from that, we can extrapolate and say, well, over a minute, 3 villagers are going to gather 3 villager minutes of resources. So the question is, how fast does Blueberries pay off? How soon does it overtake the 3 villager shipments? And it depends on your build order, whether you do a safe build or whether you do a greedy build. But if you do a greedy build order, which is the build order that I've shown in the games today, the Blueberries will begin to pay off when it comes to villager seconds at 8 minutes. They will overtake the 3 villagers. And the villager second difference is 90, or you're looking at 90 villager seconds every 30 seconds for the 3 villager shipment, versus 216 villager seconds for Blueberries once you've got all 18 torps up. So it's more than double, and it works out to be roughly a 7 villager shipment. Over a 30-second period, I determined that 30 seconds was the best length of time to test this, because any smaller than that and it becomes difficult to track and any larger than that, and you're not really capturing the dynamic nature of the data. So
Yes.
Over a 30-second period, a blueberry torp will gather 20 food.
Mhm.
But because a normal torp will also gather 10 food in that time, we need to deduct that food away from the blueberry torp, which gives us 10 food remaining. Then we calculate how much food that actually represents in the form of villager second. So with a villager being 0.84 as a base gather rate on a hunt, it works out to be 12 villager seconds for each 30-second period that the torp is gathering. And that's in addition to the blueberries, or to the base berry rate. So this is 12 extra villager seconds per torp every 30 seconds. So with that, we can then calculate based on what a perfect game looks like for each option. So with the 3 villagers, it's always going to look the same. The first 30 seconds, you're going to have gained 90 villager seconds. And by the 10th minute, you're going to have gained 1,440 villager seconds. Whereas with the blueberries, it's going to be more of an exponential increase. It's going to start off significantly slower, with one torp only being able to give you 12 villager seconds. But when the second torp comes up, well, now you're gaining 24 villager seconds. And once you've reached that 18 torp number, that's when it really gets into overdrive. You're gathering 216 villager seconds every 30 seconds. So the math works out to be once the blueberries and the ironworks card is shipped, that the coin gathered is the equivalent of 1.1 villagers. The food gathered from the blueberry bush is the equivalent of 0.8 villagers, and the food gathered from a hunt is 0.5 villagers. So altogether, it adds up to 2.4 villagers. And then because you've got 18 torps that have got blueberries on them, that's 43.2 villagers. And then you've got 2 torps which don't have blueberries on them, because you'll always build them before you ship your blueberry card. They are the equivalent of 2 villagers exactly with the ironworks upgrade, and that comes to a total of 47.2 villagers. Without the blueberries card, the 20 torps would be equivalent to 40 villagers. So it's still a very huge amount. But the key difference is the blueberry torps last 5 minutes longer than the normal berry torps. So the longer, so you lose, or the resource drain takes longer to occur.
Yeah.
In the event that you don't have any hunts nearby, the difference is magnified even more greatly. Where there's no hunt nearby and you've got blueberries and ironworks shipped, your torp is gathering at a rate equivalent to 1.9 villagers. If there is no hunt nearby and you haven't shipped the blueberry card, but you shipped ironworks, your torp is gathering at 1.1 villagers. So it means that you'd be looking at 22 villagers without blueberries versus close to 38 villagers with blueberries.
Yeah.
I love it. There's so much afterthought, so much math in this that's like very, very impressive. Like that's like what we usually love to do, and you've taken all this work from us. It's like a long last brother finally found, basically.
Well, the thing is, like,
we're
all this.
actually very happy that you like put all this afterthought into the strategy.
Absolutely, it really gives some background information and all that, and some like reasoning behind it, some like facts behind it. The thing is, all this math does look very good, but the thing is, when you have like hussars in your base at minute 7 or something, then you still have to adapt. So that's like that's the tricky thing about game logic and game calculation. You always have that. Like in the end, it's not the perfect world, right? You need to walk around your hunts to gather from them and all that stuff. You need to do herding, and you might have a map where you don't find that coin that you desperately need. And stuff
the
like
way
that.
I like to think about it is it's 3 less villagers I have to worry about dying to the enemy Ulans
Yeah.
than if I chip 3 villagers.
Absolutely. That's also, I think, one of the things, for example, why Japan has a very, very strong and popular boom, because it's kind of a safe boom, and it's kind of similar here. things like, well, there can be pikes destroying your torps, but then you set them up somewhere else, and apart from that, you're not really like in danger of being raided by cavalry and all that. So that makes it a really, really like valid strategy in my eyes. All right,
but still, just as a closing note, I just wanted to say that one famous general once said, "No plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first contact with the main hostile force." And I think that is what we should keep in mind here as well. And that is what Ozzy has demonstrated today, because he is also like able to adapt this build quite easily. And I think that's one of the big strengths of this build.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
So yeah,
like I said, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much. Just big shout out to Ozzy Drone. Go check out his channels, obviously also linked in the video description. If you don't know him yet, he's putting out a lot of high quality content for Age of Empires 3 Definitive Edition. And yeah, really, really thankful and grateful to have you here with us.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Also, if you like this video, feel free to just let us know. It's also the very first video that we're ever doing in English here, so really happy about some feedback there. Maybe even some people who haven't known our channel yet, because we're usually like German moderating people here. So really happy about some feedback here, and apart from that, see you in future videos, strategy casts, strategy videos, all that stuff.
Exactly.
So how are you ending this video? We have our German way of ending the video, but I don't know how to do it in English. How are you doing?
Let's just like directly translate it. Take care and goodbye.
Yeah, take care and goodbye. See you around.